When we think of the Nazis, we picture cold-blooded killers and fanatical ideologues. And that's true. But here's the disturbing reality. Many of the top Nazis had strange, almost ordinary, even human quirks. And that's what makes them terrifying. Because it shows that the worst monsters in history weren't demons, they were people. In this video, we'll uncover the most surprising facts about 10 of the most infamous Nazis. Each one will shake the way you imagine them. Number 1. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, the dictator whose name is now synonymous with evil. We know him as the man behind the Holocaust and the war that killed tens of millions. But here's something you probably didn't know. Hitler was a vegetarian. He even promoted animal welfare laws that were shockingly advanced for the 1930s. On the surface, he claimed it was about health and compassion for animals. He hated hunting, he refused meat, and Nazi Germany even had regulations protecting animal rights. Now here's the dark contrast. While Hitler was insisting that Germans treat animals with kindness, he was planning industrial-scale mass murder against millions of men, women, and children. Compassion for a dog, no compassion for a human being. That contradiction is chilling, because it reveals how twisted his morality really was. Number 2. Heinrich Himmler. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, oversaw the extermination of European Jewry. Cold, ruthless, fanatical, you'd think he was just a hard-nosed military man. But surprisingly, Himmler was fascinated by the occult. He believed in astrology, magic symbols, and ancient Germanic myths. He even created a kind of pagan church for the SS, complete with rituals, sacred sites, and pseudo-scientific research into things like runes and ancient skulls. It sounds bizarre, almost laughable, until you remember what it led to. Himmler believed the SS was more than a police force. He saw it as a new priesthood, guardians of a racial religion. That mystical obsession gave his genocidal project a holy mission in his own eyes, which makes it more terrifying because it wasn't just politics for Himmler, it was faith. Number 3. Josef Goebbels. Josef Goebbels, the master of propaganda. Without him, Hitler might never have had the same grip on the German people. But here's a surprising fact. Goebbels wanted desperately to be a writer. Before politics, he wrote plays, novels, and poetry, hoping to be recognized as a serious literary figure. His diaries, which he kept religiously for years, reveal a man obsessed with his own genius. Of course, history remembers him for something else, turning propaganda into a weapon. But his failed literary ambitions add a layer of irony. He used his talent with words not to create beauty, but to spread hatred. And when the war ended, his devotion to Hitler was so extreme that he murdered his own 6 children before killing himself. A man who once dreamed of writing for the future ensured his own family had no future at all. Number 4. Hermann Göring. Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe and Hitler's second-in-command for much of the war. While millions starved and cities burned, Göring lived in outrageous luxury. His surprising personal quirk: he was obsessed with wealth and flamboyance. He wore uniforms of his own design, dripping with medals and decorations. He collected stolen art on a massive scale: paintings, statues, jewelry, even entire rooms stripped from palaces across Europe. At his private estate, Hall, he surrounded himself with exotic animals, hunting trophies, and priceless treasures looted from the victims of the regime. He was, in effect, a warlord living like a Renaissance prince, even while the Reich collapsed. The contrast between his flamboyant vanity and the misery he helped unleash makes Göring one of the most grotesque figures of the Third Reich. Number 5. Adolf Eichmann. Adolf Eichmann, often called the desk murderer. He didn't personally shoot or gas people. Instead, he organized the trains, the logistics, the timetables that sent millions to their deaths. But here's the surprising fact. Before the Nazis, Eichmann was just an ordinary salesman. He worked for an oil company, traveling around, selling products. This is what makes him terrifying. He wasn't a fanatic ideologue at first. He wasn't especially intelligent or charismatic. He was just a middle-class man who found power and purpose in bureaucracy. He even admitted later that he was more concerned about impressing his bosses than questioning what he was doing. And that's the frightening lesson. Genocide doesn't just need fanatics, It can be carried out by ordinary people doing their jobs. Number 6. Rudolf Höss. Rudolf Höss, Commandant of Auschwitz. He's remembered for cold efficiency, for overseeing the deaths of more than 1 million people. But the surprising personal fact is this: Höss lived with his wife and children in a house right next to the camp. His kids played in the garden within sight of watchtowers and chimneys. His wife decorated the home with stolen items from murdered prisoners. Höss himself would go from supervising mass gassings to sitting down to dinner with his family. He even described his life in Auschwitz as pleasant in his memoirs. The ability to separate such monstrous cruelty from ordinary family life is horrifying, because it shows how completely someone can compartmentalize evil. He wasn't a raving lunatic, he was calm, polite, and utterly devoted to efficiency. That makes him one of the most chilling figures of all. Number 7. Albert Speer. Albert Speer, Hitler's architect turned armaments minister, was known as the Good Nazi. Why? Because at the Nuremberg trials, he did something no one else did. He admitted guilt. He acknowledged the crimes of the regime and claimed personal responsibility. That honesty saved him from execution and gave him a strange reputation as the repentant Nazi. But don't be fooled. Speer exploited millions of slave laborers, including concentration camp prisoners, to ramp up German weapons production. He extended the war, and with it, the suffering. His surprising fact is that he was intelligent, cultured, and charming. The kind of man who could sit in a room and seem reasonable, even while enabling mass death. That polished exterior makes him uniquely unsettling, because he shows how evil can wear a respectable face. Number 8. Reinhard Heydrich. Reinhard Heydrich was called the Butcher of Prague and the Man with the Iron Heart. Even other Nazis feared him, but surprisingly, before joining the SS, he was a talented violinist. He trained as a musician and once considered it as a career. His musical talent was real, he could play at a professional level. And yet, those same hands that played Bach and Mozart also signed off on the Holocaust. Heydrich chaired the Wannsee Conference in 1942, where the final solution, the plan for industrial mass murder, was formally organized. That combination of culture and brutality makes him particularly terrifying. It shows that talent, refinement, and even artistry don't protect someone from moral collapse. In Heydrich's case, they lived side by side with ruthlessness. Number 9. Julius Streicher. Julius Streicher was the editor of Der Stürmer, a tabloid filled with the most vicious anti-Semitic propaganda of the Nazi era. His surprising fact: he was considered too crude, even for the Nazis. Hitler himself valued Streicher's propaganda, but many other Nazi leaders despised him, calling him vulgar and embarrassing. And yet, that vulgarity was his power. Streicher's paper reached ordinary Germans in a way Goebbels' more polished propaganda didn't. He spread conspiracy theories, hate-filled cartoons, and crude stereotypes that dehumanized Jews so thoroughly that violence against them seemed acceptable. At Nuremberg, Streicher was convicted not for direct killings, but for incitement to genocide, one of the rare times words alone were treated as crimes against humanity. Number 10. Josef Mengele. And finally, Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death. At Auschwitz, he decided who lived and who died with a flick of his wrist and carried out horrific medical experiments on children and twins. But here's the surprising fact. After the war, Mengele escaped justice. He fled to South America, living under false names in Argentina, Paraguay, and finally Brazil. For decades, Nazi hunters pursued him, but Mengele always stayed one step ahead. He died in 1979, suffering a stroke while swimming at a Brazilian beach. No trial, no punishment, just a quiet death. The fact that a man who caused so much suffering could live a relatively normal life for decades afterward is one of history's great injustices. It's a reminder that not all monsters get the ending we hope for. So there you have it. 10 of the most infamous Nazis and the surprising facts that reveal them not just as symbols of evil, but as people. And that's what makes them terrifying. The violinist who became a mass murderer, the family man who lived beside Auschwitz, the salesman who organized genocide. History's greatest lesson may be this: the line between ordinary and monstrous is thinner than we'd like to believe.